Donald Trump, they say Donald Trump is a threat to democracy, that he's a threat to America. Let me ask this. John Kerry was asked a question at the World Economic Forum. And he very boldly, very openly, very bravely, with no hesitation, pretty much said that, well, the First Amendment is kind of in the way of us stopping disinformation. Pretty much we got to push forward this narrative on climate change, but the First Amendment, it kind of prohibits us from doing that, and it kind of gets in our way. Which party do you think is a threat to the First Amendment? Listen to this. Last week at a World Economic Forum panel on green energy investing in sustainable development, the former U.S. Senator and Biden administration climate envoy, John Kerry, correctly identified the First Amendment as, listen to this, a major block preventing the government from halting spread of disinformation. The dislike and anguish over social media is just growing and growing. It is part of our problem, particularly in democracies, in terms of building consensus around any issue. This is me talking right now. See, that's the problem. That's what the left does. The left wants to push forward this narrative, and you need to go along with the narrative. Not necessarily the truth, but just the narrative. That's why he says consensus. Well, the consensus doesn't really matter. What matters is the truth. Because see, when he says consensus, it's saying, well, we all agree that this is the way to go. This is the thing to do. This is the right way. If you get most people on board and say, well, we're gonna go forward with that, everything else is deemed unacceptable. You can't say that. You're not allowed to think that. You're not allowed to push that. You can't post that. You can't say that. You can't make that video. You can't do that podcast. He said this at the World Economic Forum. This is also the same party, keep in mind, that worked with Facebook to throttle the very true Hunter Biden story. The consensus was that it's disinformation, it's misinformation, it's a Russian hoax. Don't listen to this. This is just a ploy by the Russians to get Trump into the White House. It's not real, not true, not even close. 51 intelligence officials signed off on a letter saying, essentially, the Hunter Biden story is not true. That was the consensus. But we now realize, oh, that was actually true. The Hunter Biden story was true. Facebook was pressured by the FBI and the Biden-Harris administration to throttle the story. Don't let that be shared. Don't let people see it. Don't let anyone have access to it. Who's the real threat to the First Amendment? People say Donald Trump is a threat. It's also interesting to me, Donald Trump has already been president. If Donald Trump was going to be a tyrant, if Donald Trump was going to be the next Hitler, why didn't he do it before? I'm very curious. If you genuinely believe that Donald Trump is close to Hitler, or that he's actually going to be a dictator, or that he's actually going to ruin America, why didn't he do it in his first term? Why not? The man had 4 years. He had 4 years to start World War III. He had 4 years to create a Handmaid's Tale sort of society. He had all that time, but it didn't happen. Who's the real threat to democracy? The candidate who was actually voted for by millions of Americans during the primaries. He campaigned. He went to this rally. He went to that rally. He did all these things, and he was voted for and he got the nomination? Or is the threat to democracy the party who had a candidate who said, we're not going to have any primaries at all. You can't challenge him. If you dare challenge Joe Biden, we're going to outcast you. You'll be shunned from the party. We're going to sue you. We're going to make it hard for you. We're going to make life difficult for you if you dare challenge the status quo. Joe Biden wets himself on the world stage at the debate, and they throw him out like a dead... They force him out undemocratically. The big dogs, the big boys of the DNC, force him out. They undemocratically install Kamala Harris as the next nominee, who no Americans voted for in the primaries, because there was no primary. Who's the real threat? Who please, objectively speaking, you don't have to like Democrats, you don't have to like Republicans. But when you look at just this history, when you look at the facts, who's the actual threat? Donald Trump was voted for. Now, I've said this before on TikTok. You may not like Donald Trump's voters. You may not like his supporters. You may not like the MAGA crowd. You may not like Donald Trump, the man. But one thing you cannot deny is that he was voted for by millions of Americans. What can we confirm concerning Kamala Harris? Kamala Harris was seen as the least liked vice president ever, or I should say, at least in modern history. No one votes for her in 2019. She drops out before they can even they even start the process. That's how disliked she is. She becomes the vice president. Then she's installed as the nominee by the DNC heads. No actual voters voted for her. Registered Democrats did not actually have a chance to vote for her. There was no primary. This shows how divided we are as a nation. This is why I don't believe we as Americans can come together. We're at a point. We're too far gone. We're too far gone. Politically, we are at a time where we are so focused on keeping the other person out. That's where we are. That's essentially what Democrats believe. Vote blue no matter who. Vote blue no matter who. They said that in 2020. There were like 20 Democrats running for president. Vote blue no matter who. Vote blue no matter who. The biggest threat to America is Donald Trump. 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 They said that. And they said, vote for any of us just so we can get him out. Don't look at policy. Don't look at anything. Don't look at character. Don't look at any of those things. Just vote blue no matter who. That's where we are politically in this country. Now, we're trying to say, oh, well, we just, it's time for us. It is time for us to come together and be one as a nation. It's time to unify. We can't unify. One side calls the other side Nazis. One side calls the other side, it's insane to me. It's insane to me. There's only so many names you can call, only so many times you can call someone a name before you're like, you know what, we've reached an impasse. We simply cannot get along. We can't. Now, maybe you think we can. We can't. John Kerry very openly shared how he does not like the First Amendment. He doesn't like it. He wishes he could do away with it.